Uh, hey everyone, so welcome to Geek Night Pune. I'm Tanmay and I'll be your host for the evening. Our topic for today is KEDA for Kubernetes, bringing the power of serverless event-driven architecture to Kubernetes. Our speakers are Manoj Bhagwat, who has been a DevOps engineer with 6+ years of hands-on experience in architecting, automating, and optimizing mission-critical deployment over large infrastructure. And our other speaker today is Parmanand Dhuri, who has around 5+ years of experience as a DevOps engineer managing infrastructure for application with multiple users. So yes, I'll hand over to Parmanand and Manoj. And yes, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Tanmay, for the introduction. So, okay, we'll take it forward from here. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's session. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yes, Manoj, it's visible.
Yes, Manoj, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so as Tanmay has already given you insight about today's session, what is today's session about? So this session is about KEDA for Kubernetes, which is like which is like an event-driven serverless event-driven auto scaling for your applications that will be deployed on Kubernetes. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Okay, so the agenda for today's session looks something like this. So first we'll talk about what are the challenges that we are facing, then what are the scaling options in KX and how those challenges are been kind of tackled using those scaling options we have in KX. Then next we'll look at what is KEDA, then we'll do a kind of a deep dive into the architecture of KEDA, followed by a live demo, which will be done by my colleague. And then once the demo is done, we'll look at the use cases, followed by we'll have a Q&A session. Okay. Okay, so first thing is let's speak about the challenges, right? So you know, right, as a developer working with container-based applications, and to host our applications, we need KX cluster. And in order to scale these applications, we need something called as horizontal pod autoscaler, which everybody would be using for scaling their application. But what happens as we are moving into the modern world of microservices, where we have event-driven architectures. With this event-driven architecture, what is happening is our scaling needs are also changing, right? So we might need to scale our application based on some custom events or messages that we have in our application, right? So to solve this problem, the first thing what we can do is basically start writing custom scalar or operators. But the problem with this is it is going to take a lot of time, and apart from this, on a longer run, it's difficult to maintain, right? So then in order to increase the developers productivity and agility, also uh, developing a robust system, we need a proper scaling, right? So to solve all this problem, let's look at what are the scaling things we have with Kubernetes. So we'll talk about some scaling options that we have with KX. So first is manual scaling, right? So this is something that everybody is aware of. Everybody uses on day-to-day basis on their Kubernetes cluster. This is something not recommended, obviously, for higher environment, but people usually do use this method for on their local or a development environment where you have some application running, you deploy it, and then you want to scale it. So one of the method is using kubectl CLI, right? So you pass an argument with the number of replicas that you want to scale, and that's how the scaling will happen. So this is purely a manual method. There is no automation, right? So the pros of this method is the person who has deployed the application or the person who is maintaining the cluster, they are the in charge of scaling. So whatever happens, In case of scaling up or down, everything has to be taken care by the operator who is going to run this. And with this method, the con is like you cannot scale all the objects that you have in Kubernetes. For example, daemon set is something that is not scalable using the manual scaling. Moving ahead, what is the next scaling option that we have with cluster autoscaler? So the next option is cluster autoscaler, which basically everybody uses for scaling their K8s cluster as per the requirement, right? So for example, let's say you have a cluster of 2 nodes and you now are deploying an application with 100 pods. So at a certain point of time, let's say 80 pods are deployed and now your cluster is full of resources. There is no space left. So in that case, the cluster autoscaler will basically kind of come into picture, will kick in, add more nodes, and then whatever the 20 nodes that we had in pending state, those will be deployed onto the new worker nodes that have joined our cluster. So obviously the pros of this method is it helps to keep the cost in a right able to reduce the cost in the right manner. It helps you to dynamically scale up and scale down the worker node as per our requirement. But obviously with this method also we have some cons, right? So for example, if you have you'll come across this scenario where if you have few nodes also running on your pods running on your node, still the scale down will not happen. So there are few reasons behind it. Sometimes what happen is like the system pods are scheduled onto different nodes, so the trigger for moving the existing or the left over pods that are running on the previous node, there is no mechanism for them to move. So that's the pros, I would say, like con with the cluster autoscaler, where the scale down might sometimes become hectic for you, right? Moving to next scaling option that we have with Kubernetes is horizontal pod autoscaling, which everybody uses for the application level scaling, right? And which goes hand in hand with your cluster autoscaler. So in this method, what happens is you deploy some application. Now you want to scale. So the horizontal pod autoscaling is something that works very nicely with your existing objects, where you kind of use some metrics, and basis on the basis of those metrics, you scale your application. So the metrics that you usually use is CPU and memory metrics. Yeah. So basis on this, so what happens is you have application deployed, you set this HPA for with some certain percentage, and once those percentage is been breached, your horizontal pod auto scaling will kind of kick in and scale your applications. Yeah, so the pros with this method is basically it automatically scales objects based on your CPU utilization or your memory or any custom metrics, right? But again, all these scaling options that we had are still not enough, right? With HPA specifically, we have number of cons. First is this is limited by number of resources available in the cluster. That means in case if you hit the maximum limit or the capacity that you have in your cluster, you cannot scale beyond that. Again, one of the major limitation is it cannot scale back, right? I mean, if you have something like application where you want to scale down as well, scaling down to 0 is something that's not the functionality provided by HPA. Again, in case you want to do some kind of schedule scaling, again, that is something not supported by HPA. Also, in case of custom metrics, you can write custom metrics, but again, there is a limited support. So where at a certain point you hit a roadblock, and that's where you have to look for other options. So that's where actually KEDA will come into picture and help you to solve a lot of your problems. So let's look at what is KEDA. KEDA. So the KEDA is something like an Kubernetes based event driven autoscaler, right? So this basically helps you to scale your application on the basis of events or the messages that you have. So this is something developed and initially, I mean, the development was started by with collaboration of Microsoft and Red Hat, and then later it was open source, and currently it's been maintained by CNCF community. So now we need to need to know the reason, right? What is the need of KEDA? What is the purpose of you using KEDA, right? So with KEDA, what KEDA does is it makes your application auto scaling dead simple. So when we say dead simple, it means if you have an application running in your cluster and you want to integrate with KEDA, you have to make zero changes at the application level. That's how easy it is. It's just you kind of plug and play kind of module. You use it. If you don't require, you just remove it and your application will work uninterrupted. There will be no changes that would be required at your application level. Again, cost optimization is something that's really helpful. We saw with HPA, there is a limitation, right? That you cannot scale down to zero, but with KEDA, you can basically go down to zero. That means whenever the event or the messages are there in your queue, that time only your KEDA will kind of kick in the scaling, and once the things are kind of processed out, it will again scale back to zero. This is something I would correlate to what we have on clouds, right? AWS, we have Lambda. With Google, you have functions. With same with Azure, you have Azure functions. So this is like using something like enabling your Kubernetes cluster to deploy serverless things. With KEDA, another benefit is it takes away all the scaling and infrastructure. And that means all the scaling infrastructure that we use, everything is managed by KEDA. You don't have to worry about anything. Apart from this, what you have is with KEDA, you have 30. So currently we have around like 35 plus scalars or objects that are being supported out of the box. And in case you want to extend it, you can write your own custom scalar. Even that is been supported with KEDA. And what we do is with KEDA, we take a step toward deploying serverless application in KEDS, right? So if you look at the KEDS native setup, you don't have anything by default that comes with KEDS that will help you to deploy a serverless application or event-driven application. So that's where the actual benefit of KEDA comes into picture. So this was all about what is KEDA and what is the need of KEDA. So let's look into the KEDA architecture. So KEDA has a very simple architecture. So you can see we have this Kubernetes cluster where we have Kubernetes API server, and then we have our KEDA. So KEDA is something that sits between your horizontal pod autoscaler and then externally events. So in this setup, you can see in KEDA, we have three things. One is metric adapter, controller, and scaler. So let's talk about each one in detail, like what this component mean and what are their functionality. So scaler is a component that connects to the external source or the selected source that we are going to use, and then basically it reads its metrics. So for example, in today's demo, we are going to use external source as RabbitMQ, and external metrics that we are going to use is queue size. So this reading the queue size and all those external metrics reading is been taken care by this scalar component that we have in KEDA. Next is metric adapter, right? So what is the functionality of metric adapter? It basically forwards the metrics read by scalar to horizontal pod autoscaler, and then horizontal pod autoscaler will take care of scale. So that's the work of your metric adapter. So it's just a mediator or a forwarder. It reads all the metrics from scalar and then pass it to HPA. Next is controller. So last but possibly the most important component in this setup. So as it helps you with the initial scaling. So HPA is responsible for scaling your objects from 1 to n or n to 1, that is like scaling up and scaling down. But the initial scaling, the initial trigger moment that happens, that is like scaling your application from 0 to 1, and once the scaling comes back, then scaling your application back to 1 to 0. This is the functionality, or this is the main work of your controller. So it basically what it does is controller scales to the first instance, and then further cloning is performed by your HPA in this case. Apart from this, controller, what it does is also in charge of continuously monitoring whether a new scaled object deployment has appeared into your setup. Apart from this, you can see this component called as scaled object, right? So this is nothing but once we install KEDA, as part of KEDA installation, we have KEDA setups one custom resource definition called a scaled object. So this is the one that basically talks to your API server, which internally talks to your KEDA, and then KEDA basically calls your HPA. So in nutshell, KEDA also uses HPA for scaling your application. But whatever the limitations that we saw, that we have with HPA, those are been kind of overcome with the help of KEDA. Yeah. So moving further, let's look at how KEDA works. So KEDA basically has two main things in the setup. So first is agent, which activates and deactivates your Kubernetes deployments. That means scaling up and scaling down. And then next is it metrics, right? So KEDA does not only provide metrics of Kubernetes objects, but also provides the metrics from the external objects. So that's what we saw in the previous slide, right? So it is able to read the metrics from the external sources. So in further slides, we'll see what are the external scalars or objects that are supported and how those metrics are being read. So in this case, what we can see is, so in this case, what we can see is we have the scaling infrastructure that has been completely managed by KEDA, and we have a scale controller which basically takes care of the scaling and then passes all the signals for HPA, which basically does the scaling of your application. So in this picture, what you can see is it supports multiple scalars. So it supports open source as well as cloud providers. Majorly, we can talk about AWS, Azure, Google. So the major cloud providers we talk for all these cloud providers, we have a support. Apart from this, if you are using something like Kafka as your system, Kafka can also be easily integrated. In case of databases, we have support for multiple databases. In case of telemetry systems, like in case you have a scenario where you want to scale on the basis of metrics, right? So even that is possible. So you can see it supports Prometheus in terms of cloud. It supports CloudWatch and number of other scalars that we have. So what you can see in this diagram is we have four different deployments, right? And these four different deployments are going to four different scalars. But the main crux in this whole is you need to have some eventing mechanism which KEDA can leverage on, and that's where actually the functionality of KEDA will come into picture. So this is what I mean, basically a brief about how KEDA works internally. Now let's move ahead. And what we have is we have a demo, which will so we have a live demo, and it will be shown by my colleague Parma, and he'll take you through the detailed working how this works. Over to you, Parma.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. Yeah, before going into actual demo implementation, showing live demo, I would like just to summarize what will be the use case. Like as Manoj has specified everything, like existing standard auto scaling attributes are only dependent on few of the parameters like network, memory, and those kind of things. And with KEDA, we are getting more out of the box solutions. Like with external events, we can implement the KEDA for auto scaling. So similar way, we had one consider one demo, like one use case where we are using a RabbitMQ server, okay, and there is one producer over here, and there is one consumer. So there are three components into this particular demo. The RabbitMQ will be used as a scalar, where the producer is going to produce some of the messages, and those messages will be stored into RabbitMQ. And what scalar will do, so based on the messages into RabbitMQ, scalar will try replicating the consumer. Okay, so if you see, the producer is sending a certain amount of messages into RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is having n number of messages into its queue. As soon as the messages got increasing into RabbitMQ queue, the pod will start replicating from 0 to n. So that's the actual use case which we are going to trying to demo over here. So this was not possible actually with the existing standard scaling procedure which we had, right? So using KDA, this can be done. So there are multiple n numbers of use cases which we can implement. But for this demo, we'll be using this RabbitMQ with some producer and consumer along with it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Manoj. Okay. Let me share my screen. Let me know once it's visible.
Yeah, we can see.
So before going to demo, we'll just give you the idea about prerequisites what we require. First, that is a Kubernetes cluster. And as we are seeing KDA is not a platform dependent at all. We can deploy it onto Minikube, we can deploy it onto EKS, we can deploy it onto Azure Kubernetes, or we can deploy it onto GKE. Any of the Kubernetes cluster management tool or any of the cloud provider which you find suitable for your application, you can use that. So it's platform independent. But for this POC, we'll be using Minikube just to show it onto a local machine. Okay, so I have Minikube set up onto my machine. Using this particular command, I'll be setting certain memory configurations and CPU for that Minikube, and I will start the Minikube. The next attribute is a KDA to be installed onto this machine. So KDA can be installed using as a deployment YAML files. It can be installed using a Helm as well. So for this, I will be using a Helm charts for deploying KDA. So if we see KDA, only KDA as a tool, as Manoj said, it's into development still now. There are multiple versions of KDA. The latest version is 2.4. So right now, if we see from the existing, before this, there were only 10 to 20 scalars which were implemented. But right now, there are n number of scalars which are being implemented. Okay, so one of them is a cron scalar. So that was brought into development recently, 2-3 versions back. So after 2.0, it was possible to use a cron scalar. So based on the cron which you are scheduling onto the that particular deployments, the application will start replicating itself and again downscaling itself. So that was the latest change, latest scalar which was brought into implementation. So yeah, so our Kubernetes cluster is ready. Next is to add a Helm repo. So I already have a Helm repo into my machine, but still I will show the way to add the Helm repo for KDA. Okay, so it's already there into my machine. So with this command, you can add the Helm repo into your libraries. Once that is added, you need to create a namespace for KDA, where your KDA specific deployments and everything will be created. Okay, so I have created a namespace using the similar name KDA. Then I will be using version 2.0 for installing the KDA, version 2.0.0. Okay, so once that is done, so this takes a few of the seconds. Till then, what we can do, we can see what are the things which we are going to cover as a part of the coding, right? So if you see over here, there are two attributes. One is the deployment consumer, as I've shown in the PPT, right? There are 3 attributes. One is RabbitMQ server, second is a consumer, third is a publisher. So deployment will have the consumer deployment will have a RabbitMQ consumer, which will consume all the messages from a RabbitMQ server. And this is the actually heart of KDA. Okay, using this scalar, we will be implementing, this is a custom resource definition, which we are going to use to trigger the scaling of that particular consumer. Okay, this consumer initially will be at the 0 state. Number of replicas which will be up and running will be 0 over here. So as soon as this publisher sends the message to RabbitMQ server, this consumer, based on this particular scaling object configuration which you have provided. So in this, if you see, we have set the polling interval as 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, it will poll RabbitMQ server and will check if there are any messages or not. If there are any messages, it will check if there are 5 messages into that particular RabbitMQ server. If there are more than 5 messages, it will start replicating itself from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, like that. And maximum replication count which we have specified is 30. So until and unless all those messages are not consumed by this consumer, this replication will start scaling itself. Okay, and once all the messages are consumed, it will start downscaling itself again. So if we go, there is one more object of KDA, we can see trigger authentication is just a, you can say the secret which we required for consumer to connect to RabbitMQ server, that passed using this particular trigger authentication. That's the part of this particular consumer. Next, if you go for publisher, publisher is just nothing but a simple RabbitMQ client which uses AMQP protocol to send the 300 messages to RabbitMQ server. Okay, I think you might be clear about what were the three components. Like first is the RabbitMQ server, which will be having queues where this consumer will be sending messages to those queues. Okay, and once those messages are ready into the queue, this deployment consumer will start consuming those messages. And as soon as consumer finds, as soon as the scaler finds like there are more than 5 messages into the queue, it will start replicating itself till maximum 30 replica counts. Okay, so that's what actually we are going to implement over here. So let's move to the implementation part again. So right now we are done with the prerequisites. First is the installation of Kubernetes cluster using Minikube. Second is the installation of KDA using Helm charts. Okay, then next we'll proceed to a actual implementation of our use case, where we'll require a RabbitMQ server. Okay, so similar way, we'll be adding a Bitnami, so which is already there into my local machines repo libraries. Okay, similar, and we'll be in Helm charts to install the RabbitMQ server onto this particular cluster. Okay, so using Helm charts, we'll be setting up the RabbitMQ server. Similar way, till this particular RabbitMQ server is up and ready. Let's see. Container is still creating, right? So it takes a few seconds of around 30-40 seconds for the container to get up and ready. So till then I can show how we can access or how we can deploy the consumer as well. So but still, before implementing the consumer, we should wait and check this particular RabbitMQ container is up and ready. Okay, so once that is ready, we can access that by port forwarding RabbitMQ server onto the browser as well. So from the UI as well, we can check what are the messages which are available or not. Any questions till now? How this particular consumer? So like we are going to explore 3 parts for implementing this POC. First will be a RabbitMQ server, which we are implementing over here. Next will be deploying this particular consumer. Okay, so once this consumer is up and ready, into ready state with 0/0 replicas. Okay, so once at the end, the last part will be deploying this publisher. This is a job which sends 300 messages to a RabbitMQ server. Okay, so once these 300 messages are sent, RabbitMQ will start. RabbitMQ will have those 300 amounts of messages, and this deployment consumer will start consuming those messages. As soon as the RabbitMQ scaler finds that there are more than 5 messages into that particular RabbitMQ server, it starts scaling its number of replicas. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead for deploying the consumer. Before deploying consumer, let's do port forwarding for RabbitMQ server. As RabbitMQ server is up and ready, let's do port forwarding so we can access that particular RabbitMQ URL and we can view it in the browser as well locally. Okay, so we have done the port forwarding locally so that we can access the RabbitMQ server as well. I will show the RabbitMQ server UI and everything as soon as we publish all the messages to a RabbitMQ server. So next task will be, so we are done with the prerequisites. We are done with the RabbitMQ server installation. Next task will be to deploy the consumer. So I have already whatever this particular scripts I have shown, I'm in the same path where this particular YAML files are there. Okay, so this way we can create, this one is the secret which we have used for connecting to RabbitMQ server from this deployment, that is consumer. Second is the RabbitMQ consumer, and third is the this scaled object where we have specified the configuration of a scalar. And last is a triggered authentication, which is used for passing the secret to a RabbitMQ consumer. Okay, so once this is done, we can check this particular deployment is up and ready or not. So yeah, so this particular deployment is ready, and if you can see, the number of ready replicas are 0 out of 0. So as soon as we publish our messages to RabbitMQ server, this will start increasing the number of replicas into this particular consumer. Okay, let's move ahead and start deploying the publisher. So publisher is nothing but just a RabbitMQ client, which using AMQP protocol, we just send 300 messages to a RabbitMQ server. Okay. So once this job is created, we can see, we'll get to see that this will start increasing from 0 to 1. So every after 5 seconds, start polling the RabbitMQ server, the scalar, and it will start replicating itself from 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and it will start maximum at the 30 number of replicas. Okay, till then this is getting scaled. Let's see how the RabbitMQ UI looks like. Okay, let me share my another screen. Okay, so this will be the RabbitMQ server. As you can see, the number of messages are being added over here, and as and when those messages are being consumed, the ready messages will go and decreasing over here. As soon as the consumers start consuming those messages, the number of messages goes on decreasing over here. So let's move again back to the consumer. So if you can see here, the number of ready replicas are 15 out of 30. So, and still the messages are not yet totally consumed over here. So right now I can see all the messages are consumed. So let's go and see at the consumer level as well how those messages are getting downscale again. Yeah, if you can see, all those messages were consumed, and immediately the RabbitMQ consumer had downscale itself. All the replicas were back again to 0/0. Okay, that's all about demo. I think Manoj, you can go ahead to the next part.
Thanks, Momo. I will share my screen again. Let me know when you see my screen. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Parma, for the demo. So what we'll just quickly recap like what we did in the demo. So we had a RabbitMQ producer service, right, and which had 2 pods running. And then what we did is next is we installed KEDA, which basically created this custom result definition or install custom result definition in our cluster, which was that KEDA.sh something, right? And then that was our interface between client and then the consumer. So whatever the messages that we had in RabbitMQ client, all those were basically been processed by our consumer. And as per the messages were increasing, the scaling of your the consumer was being triggered by your KEDA. So internally KEDA, as we discussed in the architecture, internally KEDA uses HP only. But in this case, you can see we were using some custom resources. So in our case, queue length was the custom resource that was the one on the basis of which the scaling was happening. That's what Parma mentioned, right? So in case we have more than 5 messages in the queue, the scaling would go on, and that's what happened. So we had around 300 messages being pushed in our queue. So each container was around taking consuming 5 messages, and then that's how the scaling was triggered. So we have even put all the detail like what was the reference target. So in this case, we were using deployment as a reference target for scaling. What was the replica count? So the number of maximum replica that it can scale up to. All the details we have in this screenshot. Moving ahead. So let's look at the features that we have with KEDA, right? So first is event driven, right? So when we say event driven, what it does, it allows us to build applications which are just not reliable on CPU and memory metrics, right? So we just saw on the basis of external metrics or events, we are able to scale our application. So that's the major feature of your using KEDA. Next is auto scaling made easy, right? So you saw in the demo how easy it was to scale up and down. And another thing that we saw is on the application side, we didn't have to make any changes. It was pretty simple. We just plugged in or installed KEDA, and we just reference our deployment to that CRD, and that's how the scaling happened, right? So what we did is we just extended existing functionality of K8s by adding couple of manifest files on top of existing K8s objects that we had. So that's how the scaling or the auto scaling is being made simple with KEDA. Next is built-in scaler, right? So what we saw is like we have around 35 plus out of the box scalars been supported, and that also from multiple streams. So considering like you have databases, for databases we have scalars, for messaging systems we have scalar, for telemetry systems, for example Prometheus. If you have an application where you want to scale on the basis of metrics, monitoring metrics, for example CloudWatch could be one of the example, or whatever the metrics sources. So those kind of systems are being supported. And the main is, if you go with any of the major cloud providers, it supports all three major cloud providers. For Azure, you have very tight integration available for GCP and AWS as well. Next is multiple workload types. So what we saw in during demo is we use this deployment, right, for scaling our applications. So apart from the deployment, what we can do is we can even use job objects, or even scale the stateful based applications, stateful objects or stateful sets that we have running in our cluster, right? So even those kind of workloads can be managed using KEDA. Next is vendor agnostic, right? So as in the initial talk only we mentioned, this is an open source, and it was started in collaboration with Red Hat and Microsoft, and later it has been adopted and now maintained by CNCF community. So this is completely open source, vendor agnostic, and works across all the major cloud providers, as well as if you have things Kubernetes or Minikube that you have on a local, it works on all the environments. Last feature, that is Azure function support. So what it does, it does just not only supports pod-based application, but if you have like Azure kind of, or you have a serverless kind of infrastructure running on where you have for running your serverless workload, you are using Azure functions. So there also you can integrate KEDA, and on the basis of whatever the external events you want, you can scale your Azure function as per your need. And this integration is pretty straightforward and simple, and you can find everything into the KEDA's official documentation. So these were like kind of major features that we had from KEDA. Now let's move forward and look at what are the event sources and scalars. So we talked about, right, we had around 35 plus scalars or event sources that have been supported, and that list will go on increasing. So if we look at majorly from cloud side, you have for AWS, you have CloudWatch, Kinesis, SQS, as a event source and scalars that can be supported. So in case you have like that kind of workload, or the serverless architecture that where you are using these services, then KEDA would rightly fit into your setup. Similarly, if you look at Azure, we just talk about Azure function. Then for Event Hub, analytics, log analytics, same can be used. We talked about few databases, right? So if you look at databases in terms of like you want to scale things on databases side on basis of events, MongoDB, MS SQL, MySQL, all these databases are supported, Postgres. And then from the on the basis of metrics, we already talk about AWS CloudWatch, but even and everybody in the these days for monitoring setup uses Prometheus. And in case you have a use case where you want to scale something based on your Prometheus metrics, yeah, that's where also you can use KEDA, and that would fit in your setup. So let's move ahead and talk about few use cases. So we have few use cases where how you can use SCADA. So this is one of the use case where you can use, this is for specifically for AWS, we have two use cases. So first is for SQS. So if you want to use SQS as a trigger, so let's talk about a setup where we have an applications, you have an applications deployed on Amazon cloud where let's say you're using AWS native container orchestration, that is EKS, for setting your applications, and then you want to leverage all these other services like SQS and all those for getting all the events from the external sources. So that's where this would perfectly fit in. So as you mentioned, you can see in the trigger types, what you have to mention is just type AWS SQS queue, and then the queue URL is something that you need to mention, and then the length of the queue. So queue length would be the custom metrics, I would say, in this scenario, which would be on the basis of this queue length, the trigger will happen, the SCADA will come into picture and then do the scaling of your application. So as soon as you have the messages in your queue and this length is the metrics has been captured by your SCADA, the scaling would happen. So this is one of the use case where you have SQS as a trigger. Let's talk about another use case there where we are using CloudWatch as a trigger or events, right? So a similar scenario where you want to take on the basis of the metrics that we have in CloudWatch, right? So what you have is in this particular snippet, you can see we are again taking SQS as a namespace. So based on number of messages or the metrics that we have for SQS, based on that, we want to trigger the scaling. So that's where we have set some target metric value, minimum metric value. So based on these triggers or the details, the AWS CloudWatch would can also be integrated with your existing setup or the applications that we have running on AWS cloud. So these were the two use cases that we had very specific for AWS. But if you look at the KDAS documentation, you have it will show you other use cases for AWS. But if you want to look for other Azure as well as GCP and some open source, yes, there are a number of use cases, and with in documentation they have given a very detailed snippets. So what parameters you need to use and how you can use it with your existing setup. So this was more about the use cases that we had. Now we are almost to the end of our session, so we'll just quickly summarize what we had done in the, I mean, what we talked about in today's session. So first is like single purpose lightweight components. So during demo, Parma showed you, right, how easy the installation was of SCADA. And if you look at the number of resources that were created on your cluster during the SCADA installation, and the number of and these resources, the memory consumption or the resource consumption that these resources are doing, this pretty low. So this is very lightweight, easy to use, plug and play kind of thing. Another major thing that you need in case you want to use SCADA, the only requirement is you need to have a Kubernetes cluster that should be with version higher than 1.16. So about 1.16, you can use this or integrate the SCADA with your Kubernetes setup. Now, what we did is like with SCADA, what we saw is we can extend our cluster, right? I mean, with event-driven capabilities. So if with SCADA coming into picture, now you can deploy a event-driven kind of application or a serverless kind of application, which is kind of natively not possible with the basics setup that comes with Kubernetes. Again, what we saw is how we were able to map the event sources with Kubernetes objects, right? So in demo, we saw how we use deployment for scaling the RabbitMQ consumer on the basis of messages that we are getting in the queue. Similarly, it supports your custom, stateful set as well as job as an object. And then even what you can do is in case whatever the 35 plus scalars or events we had shown in previous slide, even that if that are not sufficient or not fulfilling your requirement, you can go ahead and write your own external resource, and even that can be integrated with your KEDA. So that kind of flexibility it provides. Now, next is it is very safe and flexible to run along with your whatever the existing setup that we have in Kubernetes. It doesn't disturb you anything or it doesn't harm any of the other components that are already part of your cluster. And also on the application side, we saw how easy it was integrate. The integration with application was so easy. We didn't have to make any of the modification in the application code, right? And the last, which we already saw in the previous slide. So we are almost at the end of our session. So few reference links that we would like to share with you guys. First is you want to learn about KEDA. So all the detailed information is available on the site keda.sh, where you have the architecture has been explained. There are certain blogs, use cases people have published, how they have been using KEDA, and how they have been benefited from it. Specifically, there is a very good use case from Alibaba Cloud, how they are using KEDA for their application level auto scaling. So whenever you go to the keda.sh, just read that use case. That would help you to understand very much in detail how much beneficial this component or this tool is if you are running your workload in KEDS. Next is, in case you guys are new to few of the guys are new to KEDS, we have few reference documentation links which would help you to get started with KEDS. We also have few reference links for tutorials. So once you have some initial knowledge on KEDS, you want to do some POCs around that, that is even also you can follow this reference link. And then last is yes, I mean, any of you are keen on contributing to KEDA, yeah, and then this is the GitHub repo where you can go ahead and start contributing the things. So yes, so that's all we had for today's session. In case you guys have any question, please feel free and ask us. We are happy to answer your queries.
Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Parma. There were a lot of questions in the chat. I think some have been addressed. Did you guys miss any?
I'm just scrolling through.
Okay, till then, I'll just share the feedback link so that the other participants can fill in the feedback for both the speakers and the organizers to tell us what we could have done better. And yes, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourselves and ask.
Okay, I think we'll take silent as no. So I guess we have no questions. So Tanmay, I think we are good. We can.
Okay. Okay then. Yes. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Parma, for such a wonderful session. You guys really explained really well. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Do fill in the feedback link. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a nice day.